Mihir Yast. This Yast, one of the longest of the Avesta and one of the most interesting in a literary point of view, is not very instructive for mythology. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Sometimes these things are instructive in ways that people don't initially perceive, but we're listing this as 10. It consists of long descriptive pieces, sometimes rather spirited, and of fervent prayers and invocations for mercy and protection. Originally, Mithra was as an entity of heavenly light, and eventually got worshipped as such, as most cultures end up worshipping their angels. And in that character, he knows the truth, as he sees everything. He is therefore taken as a witness of truth. He is the preserver of oaths and good faith. He chastens those who break their promises and lie to Mithra, destroys their houses, and smites them in battle. Particularly interesting are 115 to 118 as giving the sketch of moral hierarchy in Iran, and 121 and 122 as perhaps the source of the trials in the later Roman Mithraism. And Ramazd et Ahriman 59 through 61. The battle stuff 17, 28, 35, 47, 99, 105, 112, 128. Good faith 2, 44, 79, 81. Heavenly light 30, 136, 124, 104, 67, 50, and 12 is where we're going to find this. And one of the things people always go, oh, no, not new things, but it's like there's constant stuff for meditation, expounding in art, whether that's drama or whatever, from some of these sources. And I hope to make some of that possible through these scholastic presentations. 0. May Ahura Mazda be rejoiced, and so on. Acham Bahu. Holiness is the best of all good. I confess myself, and so on. I confess myself a worshipper of Mazda, a follower of Zarathustra, one who hates the dot of us and obeys the laws of Ahura, for sacrifice, prayer, propitiation, and glorification unto Havana, the holy and master of holiness, and so on. Unto Mithra, the lord of the wide pastures, who has 1,000 ears, 10,000 eyes, a Yazata invoked by his own name, and to Rama Havastra, be propitiation with sacrifice, prayer, propitiation, and glorification. Gatha Ahu Va'erio. The will of the Lord is the law of holiness. Now, one use of the term invocation we can say here is the mentioning something as an authority. Now, if they're praying to it as an authority, and that's whatever, that's what makes it invocation there. And I'm not saying that that's necessary here. 1 through 6 is in what they call part 1. 1. Ahura Mazda spake unto Spitama Zarathustra, saying, Verily, when I created Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, O Spitama, I created him as worthy of sacrifice, as worthy of prayer as myself, Ahura Mazda. 2. The ruffian who lies unto Mithra brings death unto the whole country, injuring as much as the faithful world as 100 evildoers could do. Break not the contract, O Spitama, neither the one that thou hadst entered into with one of the faithful, nor the one who hadst entered into with one of the faithful who is one of thy own faith. For Mithra stands for both the faithful and the unfaithful. 3. Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, gives swiftness to the horses of those who lie not unto Mithra. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the meaning for these words horses are, but we've learned earlier that the horse term is not specific to that animal. Is it the best ride? Some of the uses may say it it's not quite that, but perhaps means of some sort. Fire, the son of Ahura Mazda, you don't take the whole child thing literal, gives the straightest way to those who lie not unto Mithra, the good, strong, beneficent, vivacious of the faithful, give a virtuous offspring to those who lie not unto Mithra. For his brightness and glory I will offer unto him a sacrifice worth being heard, namely unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures. We offer up libations unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, who gives a happy dwelling and a good dwelling unto the Aryan nations. 5. May he come to us for help. May he come to us for ease. May he come to us for joy. May he come to us for mercy. May he come to us for health. May he come to us for victory. May he come to us for good conscience. May he come to us for bliss. He, the awful and overpowering, worthy of sacrifice and prayer, not to be deceived anywhere in the whole of the material world. Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures. 6. I will offer libations unto him, the strong Yazat, the powerful Mithra, the most beneficent to the creatures. I will apply unto him with charity and prayers. I will offer up a sacrifice worth being heard unto him. Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, with the ha'ama and meat, with the barisma, with the wisdom of the tongue, with the holy spells, with the speech, with the deeds, with the libations, and with the rightly spoken words. Yenhe Hatsam, all those beings of whom Ahura Mazda, and so on. Part 2 compromises verses 7 through 9. 7. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, who is truth-speaking, a chief in assemblies, with 1,000 ears well shapen, with 10,000 eyes, high, with full knowledge, strong, sleepless, and ever awake. 8. To whom the chiefs of the nations offer up sacrifices as they go into the field against the havocing host, against the enemy's coming battle array, in the strife of conflicting nations. Now, in multiple ways, we're not doing the same thing as in the Bible. We're not calling everybody, what we see and translated in the Bible as nations. We're seeing Guim, those who've turned their backs on God, from the singular Guya. We're not using terms like that. You're not a Gentile of other sorts. There's other words. I don't need to list all that here. Just being born of a different lineage, of being of a different nation, doesn't make you, whatever. We're just talking about, the various nations of the world. So, 9. On whichever side he has been worshipped first, in the fullness of faith, of a devoted heart, to that side turns Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, with the fiend smiting wind, with the cursing thought of the wise. For his brightness and glory I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard, and so on. Now, if you're really competing to serve the right side spiritually, at least first, wouldn't you kind of, whether there's psychological or material differences between you, not fight each other? That only makes sense to me, but, 3 is verse 10 and 11. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, and so on, sleepless and ever awake. 11. Whom the horsemen worship on the back of their horses, making swiftness for the teams, health for their own bodies, and that they may watch with full success those who hate them, smite down their foes, and destroy at one stroke their adversaries, their enemies, and those that hate them. For his brightness and glory I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard, and so on. 4. 12 through 16. 12. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake. 13. Who first of the heavenly entities reaches over the Hara before the undying, swift-horsed sun, who foremost in a golden array takes hold of the beautiful summits, and from thence looks over the abode of the Aryans with a beneficent eye. 14. Where the valiant chiefs draw up their many troops in array, where the high mountains rich in pastures and waters yield plenty to the cattle. Where the deep lakes with salt waters stand, where the wide flowing rivers swell and hurry towards Iskata and Pauruta, Mauru and Haruyu, the Gaba, Sugda, and Hava Erizem. 15. On Arezahe and Savahe. On Fradad Hafshu, and Vida Dafshu, on Bauru Bareste and Bauru Bareste. On this bright Karshvara and of Havan Irata, the abode of the cattle, the dwelling of the cattle, the powerful Mithra looks with a health-bringing eye. 16. He who moves along all the Karshvaras, a Gazata unseen, and brings glory. He who moves along all the Karshvaras, a Gazata unseen, and brings sovereignty and increase, strength for victory to those who, with a pious intent, holily offer him libations. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 5. We sacrifice unto Mithra. 5 is compromising 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 17. We sacrifice unto Mithra, Lord of wide pastures, and so on, sleepless and ever awake, unto whom nobody must lie, neither the master of a house, nor the lord of a borough, nor the lord of a town, nor the lord of a province. And if you see this thing, the rune, if you go Northwestern European, it's the same principle as Mithra, the tier, not the same tier as here, but 18. If a master of a house lies unto him, or the lord of a borough, or the lord of a town, or the lord of a province, then comes Mithra, angry and offended, and he breaks asunder the house, the borough, the town, the province, and the masters of the house, the lords of the boroughs, the lords of the towns, the lords of the provinces, and the foremost men of the provinces. 19. On whatever side there is one who has lied unto Mithra, on that side Mithra stands forth angry and offended, and his wrath is slow to relent. 20. Those who lie unto Mithra, however swift they may be running, cannot overtake, riding cannot, driving cannot. The spear that the foe of Mithra flings darts backwards, for the number of the evil spells that the foe of Mithra works out. 21. And even though the spear be flung well, and even though it reach the body, it makes no wound, for the number of the evil spells that the foe of Mithra works out. The wind drives away the spear that the foe of Mithra flings, for the number of the evil spells that the foe of Mithra works out. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard, and so on. 6. 22 to 27. By 6, I mean part 6, 22. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the lord of the wide pastures, and so on, sleepless and ever awake, who takes out of distress the man who has not lied unto him, who takes him out of death. 23. Take us out of distress, take us out of distresses, O Mithra, as we have not lied unto thee. Thou bringest down terror upon the bodies of men who lie unto Mithra. Thou takest away the strength from their arms. Being angry and all-powerful, thou takest the swiftness from their feet, the eyesight from their eyes, the hearing from their ears. 24. Not the wound of the well-sharpened spear, or of the flying arrow, reaches that man to whom Mithra comes for help. With all the strength of his soul, he, of the 10,000 spies, the powerful, all-seeing, undeceivable Mithra. For his brightness and glory. I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard, and so on. 25. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of the wide pastures, and so on, sleepless and ever awake, who is lordly, deep, and wheel-giving, W-E-A-L, a chief in assemblies, pleased with prayers, high, holy, clever, the incarnate word, a warrior with strong arms. 26. Who breaks the skulls of the Daivas in his most cruel and exacting pains, the punisher of the men who lie unto Mithra, the withstander of the Pa'irikas, who, when not deceived, establisheth nations in his supreme strength, who, when not deceived, establisheth nations in supreme victory. 27. Who confounds the ways of the nation that delights in havoc, who turns away their glory, takes away their strength for victory, blows them away helpless, and delivers them unto 10,000 strokes, he of the 10,000 spies, the powerful, all-seeing, undeceivable Mithra. For his brightness and glory I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard, and so on. Part 8 compromises 28 through 34. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, and so on, between pastures and sleepless, who upholds the columns of the lofty house, and makes its pillars solid, who gives herds of oxen and male children to that house in which he has been satisfied. He breaks to pieces those in which he has been offended. 29. Thou, Mithra, art both bad and good to nations. Thou, O Mithra, art both bad and good to men. Thou, O Mithra, keepest in thy hands both peace and trouble for nations. 30. Thou makest houses large, beautiful with women, beautiful with chariots, and well-laid foundations, and high above their groundwork. Thou makest that house lofty, beautiful with women, beautiful with chariots, with well-laid foundations, and high above its groundwork, of which the master, pious and holding libations in his hand, offers thee a sacrifice in which thou art invoked by thy own name, and with the proper words. 31. With a sacrifice in which thou art invoked by thy own name, with the proper words will I offer thee libations, O powerful Mithra. With the sacrifice in which thou art invoked by thy own name, with the proper words will I offer libations, O most beneficent Mithra. With a sacrifice in which thou art invoked by thy own name, with the proper words will I offer thee libations, O thou undeceivable Mithra. 32. Listen unto our sacrifice, O Mithra. Be thou pleased with our sacrifice. O Mithra, come and sit at our sacrifice. Accept our libations. Accept them as they have been consecrated. Gather them together with love, and lay them in the Garo Namana. 33. Grant us these boons which we beg of thee, O powerful entity, in accordance with the words of Revelation, namely, riches, strength, and victory, good conscience and bliss, good fame and a good soul, wisdom and the knowledge that gives happiness, the victorious strength given by Ahura, the crushing ascendant of Asha Bahista, and conversation with God on the holy word. 34. Grant that we, in a good spirit, in a high spirit, exalted in joy and a good spirit, may smite all our foes, that we in a good spirit and high spirit, exalted in joy and a good spirit, may smite all our enemies, that we in a good spirit and a high spirit, exalted in joy and a good spirit, may smite all the malice of the Daivas and men, of the Yachts and Pa'irikas, of the oppressors, the blind, and the deaf. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. Part 9 compromises verses 34 to 43. 35. 35 to 43, is that what I said? We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, and so on, sleepless and ever awake, victory-making, army-governing, endowed with 1,000 senses, power-wielding, power-possessing, and all-knowing, 36. Who sets the battle a-going? Who sets against armies in battle? Who, standing against armies in battle, breaks asunder the lines arrayed? The wings of the columns, gone to battle, shake, and he throws terror upon the center of the havocing host. 37. He can bring, and does bring down, upon them distress and fear. He throws down the heads of those who lie unto Mithra. He takes off the heads of those who lie unto Mithra. 38. Sad is the abode unpeopled with children, where abide men who lie unto Mithra. And verily the fiendish killer of faithful men, the grazing cow, goes a sad straying way, driven along the vales of the Mithra Drugas. They stand on the road, letting tears run over their chins. 39. Their falcon-feathered arrows, shot from the string of the well-bent bow, fly towards the mark, and hit it not, as Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, angry, offended, and unsatisfied, comes and meets them. Their spears, well whetted and sharp, their long spears, fly from their heads towards the mark, and hit it not, as Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, angry, offended, and unsatisfied, comes and meets them. 40. Their swords, well thrust, and striking at the heads of men, hit not the mark, as Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, angry, offended, and unsatisfied, comes and meets them. Their clubs, well falling, and striking at the heads of men, hit not the mark, as Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, angry, offended, and unsatisfied, comes and meets them. 41. Mithra strikes fear into them. Rashnu strikes a counter-fear into them. The holy Sirozahs blows them away from every side towards the two Yasts, maintainers of the world. They make the ranks of the army melt away, as Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, angry, offended, and unsatisfied, comes and meets them. 42. They cry unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, saying, O Mithra, thou lord of wide pastures, here are our fiery horses taking us away, as they flee from Mithra. Here are our sturdy arms cut to pieces by the sword, O Mithra. 43. Then Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, throws them to the ground, killing their 50s and their 100s, their 100s and their 1000s, their 1000s and their tens of thousands, their tens of thousands and their myriad of myriads, as Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, is angry and offended. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard, and so on. 10 compromises, 44 to 46. 44. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, and so on, sleepless and ever awake, whose dwelling wide as the earth extends over the material world, large, unconfined, and bright, a far and wide extending abode. 45. Whose 8 friends, think of how in Islamic mythology we have the reference of the 8 that support the throne. And there's other references we can bring up, but sit as spies for Mithra on all the heights, at all the watering places, observing the man who lies unto Mithra, looking at those, remembering those who have lied unto Mithra, but guarding the ways of those whose life is sought by men who lie unto Mithra, and verily by the fiendish killers of faithful men. 46. Helping and guarding behind and guarding in front. Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, proves an undeceivable spy and watcher for the man, to whom he comes to help with all the strength of his soul, he of the 10,000 spies, the powerful, all-knowing, undeceivable entity. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard, and so on. Part 11 is verses 47 and 48. 47. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, an entity of high renown and old age, whom wide-hoofed horses carry against havocing hosts, against enemies coming in battle array, in the strife of conflicting nations. 48. And when Mithra drives along towards the havocing host, towards the enemies coming in battle array, in the strife of the conflicting nations, then he binds the hands of those who have lied unto Mithra. He confounds their eyesight. He takes the hearing from their ears. They can no longer move their feet. They can no longer withstand those people those foes when Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, bears them ill will. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard, and so on. 12 compromises 49 through 59? I'm not saying a 13 here. 49. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, and so on, sleepless and ever awake. 50. For whom the maker Ahura Mazda has built up a dwelling on the Hara Berezaete, the bright mountain, around which the many stars revolve, where come neither night nor darkness, no cold wind and no hot wind, no deathful sickness, no uncleanliness made by the Daivas, and the clouds cannot reach up unto the Hara Ete Babreza. Now, a lot of mythologies, they try to explain everything, and rather than waiting for the knowledge, they, create a theory of everything that doesn't quite pan out. And you can't blame that on the prophetic figures that come in, because obviously they're re-putting back all the angel worship and all that other stuff, and so it's hard to tell what's what sometimes. 51. A dwelling that all the Ameshas spent us, in one accord with the Son, made for him, in the fullness of faith of a devoted heart, and he surveys the whole of the material world from the Haraete Baresa. Now, operating from a central location on Earth, that can make sense, even if you get away from this from a flat Earth paradigm, or concave, convex, whatever, if you actually have a globe. Which is, 52. And when there rushes a wicked worker of evil swiftly with a swift step, Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, goes and yokes his horses to his chariot, along with the holy powerful Star Asha and Nairio Sangha, who strikes a blow that smites the army and smites the strength of the malicious. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 13 is 53 to 59. 53. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake. 54. Who, with hands lifted up, ever cries unto Ahura Mazda, saying, I am the kind keeper of all creatures, I am the kind maintainer of all creatures, yet men worship me not with the sacrifice in which I am invoked by my own name, as they worship other entities with sacrifices in which they are invoked by their own names. 55. If men would worship me with the sacrifice in which I were invoked by my own name, as they worship the other Yasts with sacrifices in which they are invoked by their own names, then I would come to the faithful at the appointed time. I would come in the appointed time of my beautiful immortal life. Now, the Amesha Spentas and Yazatas, lesser and greater angels, it was still the same thing. Well, they were going to do whatever, carry out the command. They didn't have a choice. They don't have free will to obey and disobey, that sort of thing. But as you give them personalities, project things upon them, then further these sorts of explanations have to come in to talk about what you're going to do next. In 56. But the pious man, holding libations in his hands, does worship thee with the sacrifice, in which thou art invoked by thy own name, and with the proper words. With the sacrifice in which thou art invoked by thy own name, and with the proper words, will I offer thee libations, O powerful Mithra. With the sacrifice in which thou art invoked by thy own name, with the proper words, will I offer thee libations, O most beneficent Mithra. With the sacrifice in which thou art invoked by thy own name, with the proper words, will I offer thee libations, O undeceivable Mithra. 57. Listen unto our sacrifice, O Mithra. Be thou pleased with our sacrifice, O Mithra. Come and sit at our sacrifice. Accept our libations. Accept them as they have been consecrated. Gather them together with love, and lay them in the Gauro Namana. 58. Grant us these boons which we beg of thee, O powerful entity, in accordance with the words of revelation, namely riches, strength, and victory, good conscience and bliss, good fame and a good soul, wisdom, and the knowledge that gives happiness, the victorious strength given by Ahura, the crushing ascendant of Ashabahista, and conversation with God on the holy word. 59. Grant that we, in a good spirit and a high spirit, exalted in joy, and a good spirit may smite all our foes, that we, in a good spirit and high spirit, exalted in joy, and a good spirit may smite all our enemies, that we, in a good spirit and high spirit, exalted in joy, and a good spirit may smite all the malice of the Da'avas and men, of the Yatus and Pa'arikas, of the oppressors, the blind and the deaf. For his brightness and glory I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard, and so on. Part 14 is only verse 60. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, and so on, sleepless and ever awake, whose renown is good, whose shape is good, whose glory is good, who has boons to give at his will, who has pasture fields to give at his will, harmless to the tiller of the ground, beneficent, he of the 10,000 spies, the powerful, all-knowing, undeceivable entity. For his brightness and glory I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard, and so on. Part 15, 61 to 63. 61. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, firm-legged as a watcher, fully awake, valiant, a chief in assemblies, making the waters flow forward, listening to appeals, making the waters run and the plants grow up, ruling over the Karshwaras, delivering, happy, undeceivable, endowed with many senses, a creature of wisdom. 62. Who gives neither strength nor vigor to him who is lied unto Mithra, who gives neither glory nor any boon to him who is lied unto Mithra. 63. Thou takest away strength from their arms, being angry and all-powerful. Thou takest swiftness from their feet, the eyesight from their eyes, the hearing from their ears. Not the wound of the well-sharpened spear or of the flying arrow reaches that man to whom Mithra comes for help with all the strength of his soul, he of the 10,000 spies, the powerful, all-knowing, undeceivable entity. For his brightness and glory I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard, and so on. Part 16 is verses 64 to 66. 64. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, and so on, sleepless and ever awake, who takes possession of the beautiful, wide, expanding law, greatly and powerfully, and whose face looks all over the 7 Karshvaras, continents of the earth. 65. Who is swift amongst the swift, liberal among the liberal, strong amongst the strong, a chief of the assembly amongst the chiefs of assemblies, increase giving, fatness giving, cattle giving, sovereignty giving, son giving, cheerfulness giving, and bliss giving. 66. With whom proceed Ache, Gangohe, and Pa Rende on her light chariot. The awful, manly